Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not? Why not? Consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now today's first story is from a deleted user titled My Ex Proposed. I said no. He's now talking about suing me. Advice? Just want to say this is going to sound insane, but I am not trolling or making it up. Me and this guy were together for 3 years. We are 19 now. We never talked about the future until a year in. Before then, I tried to discuss it and he would change the subject. In short, I wanted kids. He didn't. I wanted to stay in Ireland. He didn't. I wanted to get married. He didn't. When I realized it was a bad match, I broke it off, but he asked to get back together, saying we were too young to worry about the future, and we got back together. This happened a few times over the next 18 months. In this time, we probably spent more time apart than together. We knew early on that we wanted different things, and while marriage and kids are something I would want further down the line, I wasn't concerned about his open dislike of marriage and kids because 19 is too young to get married anyway. If I were dating him 10 or 15 years from now and he didn't want to get married, then I might have an issue. But when I'm barely out of my teens, it's not a huge concern. And just loving him and wanting to be with him is enough. When I went to see him this time, I was again considering breaking up with him. Aside from the long-term issues, he's also inconsiderate and has a mean streak that I really don't like. So when I arrived at his place, mentally debating breaking up with him for good this time, and he told me he wanted to take me out to dinner. I assumed he wanted to break up too, publicly, so I wouldn't cause a scene. I don't normally cause a scene, but being in public tends to prevent yelling, and we both yell every time we break up. In the last year, he has asked me 2 things that, looking back, now stand out to me. First, he asked about jewelry, what kind of stuff I liked and what my taste was. I assumed it was because my birthday was coming up and he was getting me a bracelet or something, so I told him simple and delicate, silver or steel rather than gold. If there was a color, then blue. Nothing flashy or expensive, as both my job prefers plain jewelry and it's just my personal preference. I also said, go cheap. The other thing he asked me was how I felt about public proposals. I told him immediately that I personally disliked them, as I felt I wouldn't be able to say no, even if I wanted to. I feel like public proposals are okay when they've been specifically requested and agreed on, but one that's totally out of the blue is not okay at all. I assumed he was asking about this because his friend had just proposed to his girlfriend of several years, publicly, and she accepted but admitted to him after that she would have preferred something private. I never thought in a million years that he would propose. So you can imagine my shock when we went to dinner and the first thing he did was propose. The ring was huge, gold, gaudy, red gems around a diamond, and the whole thing was the size and shape of a Super Bowl ring. He got on one knee and held it out to me. We were in the middle of this popular restaurant and the place was packed. Everyone there could see what was going on and wasn't even trying to hide that they were looking at us. I said no. Well, I didn't so much say no. I ran out the restaurant. He drove me there, so I got a cab back and drove home that night. I realized running out wasn't the best thing to do, but I didn't know what else to do. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, and all I knew was that I didn't want to marry him or accept his proposal. I felt like I couldn't even speak. I was so upset about the whole thing, so I just got up and ran. I just want to take the opportunity to say here that I really don't care about the rings. Honestly, when I want to get married, which is absolutely not when I'm 19 years old, turn to me and say, want to get married, and I'd say yes. I wouldn't even need a ring. I know I'm focusing on the ring and the public proposal a lot, but that's only because of 1, how far away it was from what I told him my taste was, and 2, what happened next. I didn't hear from him until a few weeks later. He said that he thought a proposal was something I'd want, but he saw now that it wasn't. He said that he was out of pocket for the rings. He bought us both the same one and gotten them engraved. He linked me to the jeweler's website and the ring was up for €1,450, about $650/£1,300. When I asked why he was telling me this, he said he'd hoped I would cover the cost of mine. He said that as they'd been engraved, he couldn't get a refund. He'd hoped that I would say yes to the proposal, in which case he wouldn't have asked me to pay, but I said no. He also said I'd embarrassed him by saying no in public and should have said yes, and if I was really against it, waited to say no when we were alone. We both live in small towns where gossip spreads at church. Enough people were at the restaurant that night that both of us got asked about it at church on Sunday. He has since messaged me saying he's debating calling in a lawyer to sue me for the cost of my ring, €1,450, and he also says that I caused him emotional distress by turning him down in public and having publicly humiliated him for both rejecting his proposal in public and leaving him to deal with church gossip, which I had no part in spreading. He says he can also get some money off me over those other two things. So $1,450 for what he spent on my ring and extra money for emotional distress and public humiliation. I think his legal claims are all bullshit and he wouldn't have a leg to stand on in a court of law. But I'm not a student or a lawyer. He is studying law currently and has an internship at a legal firm. What do I do about all of this? Do I need to prepare myself for a lawsuit or is it not worth worrying about? Thanks in advance. And we do have a small edit in a moment which replies to the comments. Now, obviously, I'm pretty clueless about the whole law stuff, but it does sound like absolute bullshit to me as well. I mean, you can't just go and buy a ring and then, on the assumption that they're going to say yes, and then try to sue them when they say no. Like, you must lock yourself into a marriage with me now I've purchased this ring. I mean, what the hell? And to me, it just sounds like he's throwing around words like emotional distress and public humiliation and stuff because he has an internship at a legal firm, so he's throwing these words around as some sort of threat or something. So you possibly back down quickly, give him the money for the ring and it all goes away. But Shit I Ate a Bird says he's using the fact that he's studying law to intimidate you into paying him. He thinks that you'll believe he has a legitimate claim since he knows the law better than you do. He does not have a legitimate claim. Axel says you can't sue someone for the cost of an engagement ring they didn't accept. Had you said yes initially and then privately said no, like he had suggested, he may have had a semblance of a case, but you didn't. You are not on the hook because he can't read the room or understand your perspective on the relationship. Block him, ignore him, and go live your life without him. It sounds like it's much better without him in it. Satan's Lioness says by suing you, he would only be asking for more public humiliation. In no way, shape or form has a case against you. Not for the money he spent on the ring, not for the public humiliation or distress. The fact that he would even consider suing you over a declined proposal is laughable. He wants you to pay for his bruised ego. He sounds like garbage. I'm glad you ran. I hope you keep running away from this clown and never look back. And one more from Evan was here who says, lol, the ring would have been a gift. I'm American. If an engagement ring is given to someone on a non-gift giving holiday, it's sort of contract, so if the marriage doesn't happen, the ring has to be given back. As the contract wasn't fulfilled, but in no friggin' sense can the attempted fiancé request money for the ring if their offer is declined, especially if the gift was a surprise and you had no real input on it. Also, he can't sue you for embarrassing himself. Let him know that if he bothers you further about this, he will let everyone know what kind of person he is that is attempting to sue his ex-girlfriend. You dodged a bullet. Congrats. So then OP edits the post which says, he knew I wanted to get married but not to him. He not only knew this but said he had no intention of marrying me either. He openly despised marriage right up until the time he proposed, and he knows that we want different things out of marriage. And I told him that this was why I was breaking up with him. The times before this that I have ended the relationship. During the course of our relationship, he's also said stuff like, we're too young to think about marriage. It's not like we're getting married. And my favorite, it's not like I'm gonna propose. That one was last April. Edit 2. His mother has reached out to me apologizing for her son's actions. She has said nothing will come of this and that she raised an idiot. Woo-hoo-wee. Ooh, gee whiz, mama is not happy. Someone's in trouble. And whenever we cover public proposals, I always think, that's a scary thing to do, man. I know a lot of people do it, and some people absolutely love it and think it's a great idea, and some people want that, which absolutely fine. But I'm kind of with what some of the comments says, that it sort of needs to be agreed maybe early on in the relationship or something like that, so it's still a surprise in some way, and not just come out with it randomly. I think I would die if someone proposed to me in public like that. And if you wanted to say no, you still wouldn't want to hurt your partner there and then in front of God knows how many people. So you'd feel like you have to say yes, and then they'd get this excitement, then you'd have to let them down when you get home, and it causes more friction. It just sounds, too much stuff goes through my head. It's crazy stuff. But what do you guys make of this story? What do you think about public proposals? Would that be something you would want? Would you want to discuss it beforehand, or would you just be happy, randomly one day someone proposes? Well, your partner proposes, I hope. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, not just some random person. And let's move on to another story. And our next story is from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit from BoxHot5459, who asks, am I the arsehole telling people in our neighborhood about my neighbor spying on my wife? My wife, 28 female, and I, 30 male, bought my grandparents' house a year ago. It's quite a big home in a good neighborhood with a pool. We wanted a house with a pool, to be honest. I'm an architect and my wife is an interior designer, so before we moved in, we did some works around the house. For better explanation, the neighbor in question is neighbor A and the other is B. The pool is located on the backyard closer to neighbor B, so we decided to put a sliding lattice wall in the middle of our yard and recess the pool area a bit. I did all of this because my wife likes to tan and swim topless. She doesn't do it all the time, but I wanted to ensure my wife's privacy as well as avoid snoopy neighbors as much as I can. A few days ago, we were chilling at the pool after a long day of work, watching TV and drinking when my wife took her top off. No biggie. I won't say I didn't touch her, but we didn't really do anything explicit and she barely left the water. We remained there for a while and then we went to sleep. One of the neighbors told us that this was a family neighborhood and that we will do better if we keep that in mind because neighbor A said that she saw us last night. Odd, because she had to stand at the very end of her property and because of her height get on something. We shut our mouth, but 5 days ago when I came home from work, my wife was having a discussion with our neighbors. It turns out that the lady caught her husband watching my wife a second time and was calling her names. I cut the discussion short and sent them home, threatening to call the police if we caught the husband doing that. I guess the lady wanted to spread the word before we did to save face and told a few of our neighbors about my wife being indecent, leaving her husband out completely. So I went out of my way too. Whenever I see some of her neighborhood friends, I make small talk and tell them about my very nice lattice wall, the pervert husband, and how he has to get out of his way to watch my poor wife at home. Needless to say, they're being casted out for his behavior, and my wife and I think it's funny, but my family not so much. So I was wondering if we were in the wrong. I'm pretty sure peeping like that is considered a crime, especially in the UK. I've heard people getting done for it before on various Nightmare Neighbours stuff before. But I can tell this one is obviously not in the UK. I mean, they got a pool for one. Not many pools in the UK. It's cold most of the year. I know some of you have pools. Don't get on my back about that one. He's committing a crime which you can probably get done for, and you've tried to make this space as private as possible. It's your backyard, and he's the one who's in the wrong here. And then the neighbor went to spread rumors around about your wife being indecent and obviously leaving her husband out of it. And you're just telling the truth about what happened. There's no way that you can be in the wrong in this situation. And I do wonder why your family is upset. Is it because they've known these neighbors for X amount of years, because it's your grandparents' house? I mean, that doesn't excuse them at all, but I'm just wondering the reason why they're upset, because it just doesn't make sense. But at Sweaty says, not the arsehole, you installed privacy walls and it's your property. If your wife wants to be topless, there is absolutely no issue. If someone is going out of their way to spy on her, they're the ones in the wrong and are a predator. It's good you are telling your neighbors, as they probably like to know they have a pervert living by them. Embarrassed Hat replies that saying, years ago, my dad and his partner had a neighbor that liked to snoop. They enjoyed swimming in the nude, so they planted bamboo along the fence line so you couldn't see in. No problems for a while until they saw nosy neighbor lady climb up on her roof so she could see them in their backyard. She called the police, and when they showed up at my dad's, he told them about her being on the roof to look in. cop laughed his ass off and told the lady to stay off her roof if she didn't want to see something she didn't want to see. Fun Woodpecker says, in the privacy of your own back garden, and he has been watching her. He's a peeping Tom. You should both be able to do as you please, and it might be a family neighborhood, but unless the whole neighborhood is watching, it doesn't mean a thing. Tell the woman to control her husband. He obviously has nothing better to do. Holmes says, not the arsehole, her husband's prying eyes are not your problem. He's a gross old man. He'd probably look at any attractive woman when he can. She's going to tell those ladies to just stop being in the grocery store or the mall or any restaurant. The source of her issue is her husband. If he's being a peeping Tom, call the cops. And one more from Plenty Pitiful who says, not the arsehole. When I first moved into my house, a neighbor came walking by while I was in my front yard. She told me that she could see me on my back deck, and then she just trailed off and gave me that boomer look of, you know. I honestly have no idea what I did that she felt the need to comment, but she lives on the next street over, across the street from the house behind mine. She would have had to been looking out of a second floor window through a bunch of trees to see my back deck. It would take effort. I just stared at her silently without moving or blinking until she left. If she told me her husband could see me, I probably would have called the cops. Now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story, which comes from former Pizza1270, who says, am I the arsehole for teaching my daughter to cook to make her future husband happy? I, 32 male, am a single father to an absolutely beautiful daughter, Mary, 14 female. Mary's mother died when she was 2, and except for the 4 years when her mother was alive or we were living with my parents while I attended college, she has been raised solely by me. I've been cooking since I was 14, always at home and for the people I care about. It is fair to say I'm a pretty damn good at-home chef. It is also fair to say that my daughter blows my cooking skills out of the water. She has always taken a keen interest in cooking and has been helping me in the kitchen since she was 4. At 12, I've been giving her $50 a week to pick out her own ingredients at the store and cook dinner every Wednesday, and she has absolutely loved it. To give an idea of how skilled my daughter is, last week she made a 4-cheese risotto, twice baked potatoes, and sous vide pronunciation a steak to perfect medium rare and seared it perfectly. For dessert, it was a strawberry rhubarb crumble and homemade ice cream. Everything was completely from scratch. When she was young, she asked me why I learned to cook and why I always cook dinner. I told her that my philosophy around cooking is, you cook to make the people you love happy and healthy, and I originally started to learn to cook to impress her mother on our first date. Since then, every time she tried new recipes on me and I loved it, she would always joke, if you love it, Dad, then her crush at the time would love it and would be very happy. This semester at school, she decided to take a home cooking option in hopes she would learn new recipes and cooking skills. Today, the teacher asked everyone why they wanted to learn how to cook, and my daughter responded, to make my future husband and kids happy and healthy. The teacher was shocked at that answer, and I was requested for a meeting with the principal and teacher after school hours. They chewed me out for my unhealthy parenting and grooming my daughter to be a housewife for some man in the future. I talked to a group of mothers that I go to for daughter advice, and they said I'm an arsehole for instilling such sexist ideals in my daughter and allowing her to think that is all her cooking is good for. I'm ready to accept any verdict, so court of public opinion, am I the arsehole? I'm going to start off with Pink Pumpkin, who says, this seems like a miscommunication. Your intentions were to teach your daughter a necessary life skill, not to teach her that she needs to cook to get a husband or to please him. Plus, you are a man and you cook for your family, so she's seeing that at home already. Plus, there's nothing wrong with that being something that a girl aspires to. Not every girl has to want to be a career woman, and that's okay. Some women enjoy taking care of their families, and that's just as admirable as the women who enjoy reaching new career goals. And Stacity says that not the arsehole, calm down to those who are voting you're the arsehole. He's not conditioning his daughter back to the 1950s. Hell, OP himself has been cooking since 14. He's naturally set himself an example, cooking for his family to be happy and healthy, a skill that his daughter wants to imitate. Not everything is sexist nor backwards. She's clearly happy and eager. Parents and the principal should use that rage to curb pressing matters such as bullying instead. Frequent Jellyfish says, since you are the one who taught her to cook and you learned to impress her mum, I think it is unfair to call you sexist here. It sounds like your daughter just paraphrased in an unfortunate way. I guess it is kinda cool that the school is so vigilant, but as someone who works at a high school, I'm surprised, skeptical they would make such a big deal of it with all the other issues going on in a school. If one of my students said something like that, I would just add, or yourself. It is good to do things to make just you happy, etc., etc., not the arsehole. And let's have one more from Wobbling Goblin, who says not the arsehole. I think the school way overstepped their bounds big time. I think you were smart for encouraging her to learn skills like cooking. Gender norms aside, it's just a good life skill to have. I think people are peeved because it sounds like you are suggesting she learn to cook solely to serve her husband, and it sounds a little boomery. But I don't think you actually said those words. You said cooking is good to express love to your family, etc., which I think is a solid reasoning. Your daughter maybe didn't understand the subtlety of the words and just said to make her husband happy. I also think people in general are just ready to jump down your throat at a moment's notice for any little thing. Now, I'm going to turn this one straight to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? I did try to find some of those "you're the arsehole" comments, but a lot of them had been deleted since. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's story, showing your love towards the stories, the comments, and to everyone else down in the YouTube comments as well. It really does mean the world. So thank you so much, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care, and much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go, see the sun shining from the windows. Okay, I know that today